Hello, everyone. Let's talk about interview preparation. We recently had a session with friends from medical school in regards of interview preparation, and that got me thinking about how if I make a video out of it, maybe a lot of my friends will be able to like benefit from it. So here it goes. Uh, One thing that's fairly easily available in the internet, but then people tend to skip through it is that ACZME actually does a survey of program directors throughout US every year, and then they produce the report like the approaches to interview, and then what are the considerations that they find important in regards of an interview. And more often than not, every year, like fit to the program is quoted as one of the most important consideration. Now, fit to the program can mean a lot of things. So. In preparing for your interview, I think a very good mindset to approach interview preparation with is because you have already submitted your application and personal statement and everything. Now, to you, essentially fit to the program basically means how good your interview goes, how well you approach the questions asked during your interview. So that's one thing I wanted to clear right out of the way. Now, having said that, the obvious question is what determines the fit then, right? So it's either it could either be the content of what you speak or the general demeanor, the general tone that you speak it with. Those are two things that I can think of. In terms of content, it's a very cognitive thing. Actually, both how you speak about things and what you speak is cognitive, in that you can practice and get better at both of these. But then how you speak about things, how your body language is, how your eye contact is, it takes a little bit of more practice than your content itself. But then from talking to a lot of friends last year and this, and my own interview experiences, I've realized that we actually do not give enough priority and enough effort into preparing for an interview, which is a very bad thing to do. So I'd recommend everyone preparing for it. But then I understand that that's a very popular advice that all of us should prepare for it. The thing is, like, how do you prepare for it, right? So it's no secret that most of the common interview questions are available in the internet everywhere. One reason is we in the medical community like to help each other. So like once we go through the interview, despite being like told that we should not, in one way or the other, it's out there. You get the questions. The other thing is questions are fairly common, and like everyone asks the same question. So it's very easy to guess what the questions would be. What that means in terms of your preparation is you can actually write the questions down and write the answers down. In terms of writing the answers down, what I recommend is write the answers in bullet points rather than the paragraphs itself. What that does is that makes it sound very spontaneous rather than very robotic, if that makes sense. Like if you know the bullet points, you'd know what to speak about, but then how do you speak about it? Like elements of spontaneity would not like go away. So that's one way you can help yourself in terms of interview preparation. Now, one of the very common question that most of the interviews open with is some version of tell me about yourself, right? So when they ask you introduce yourself, tell me about yourself, well, if you meet someone that you have never met and you have to introduce yourself, how would you do that? Like all of these are iterations of the same basic question. So one very interesting thing that came up yesterday was whether or not you tell your name while introducing. Like if you are introducing yourself, you probably would tell your name. That's a very big part of your introduction, so you probably start there. But then the other part is like whether or not you'd, like for example, if they tell you, tell me about yourself, would you start with my name is so and so, or would you start with like I was born and raised in this place? Like how would you go about it? I don't think it matters a lot, but then if like I said, the question itself is introduce yourself, then it makes sense to start with the name, or else maybe it's not very important to start with the name. But then one very important thing is make sure that you know how you are going to start it, and make sure that you know how you're going to end it. You need to have what is called a planned ending. you should not, like, the worst thing you can do to yourself is if you start talking about yourself, but then in middle of it you realize that you don't know how to end it, and then you just like abruptly end it. It do not look very good. So make a planned way of like ending it. Could be a chronological story that brings you like maybe the ending would be something in line of, well, and that brings me to this interview which I'm really happy about, or that brings me here interviewing with for my residency programs which I'm very excited about, something like that. Like you'd have to have a plan like how you are going to approach the ending of the question. That's one thing to think about. The other thing is you need to have two versions of each answer. For example, you can always look at the interviewer and realize whether or not they are very interested in the whole story. Sometimes if you feel like you need to cut it short, then make sure you can cut it short from the middle part of your answer. So if you are doing like bullet points, if there are like 10 bullet points in introduce yourself or talk about yourself, you can cut out 5 from the middle so that the ending and the starting does not feel abrupt. So that's one thing to be very mindful of. The other question that's asked very often is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, right? Uh, Again, if you practice talking about your strength, then you can actually uh, make it sound very less awkward, because I know a lot of us, especially IMGs, we struggle to talk about our strengths for some reason. Maybe it's our brought up, maybe I don't know what it is, but then we find it very difficult to talk about our strengths. But it is really important to talk about your strength when asked for, because you are applying for a job, and think about it in terms of you being an employer. If there is someone who can only talk about the weaknesses and then tell you that they are weak in this and this area, but then they cannot sell you on their strength, then you'd struggle hiring them, right? It's the same for the program director. So you'd have to be very comfortable talking about your strengths, but then the way you talk about it can actually make a lot of difference. For example, if I have to say that, while being in medical school, I really enjoyed team sports. I really enjoyed team events rather than doing something individually. So I guess that speaks about me being a team player, because whenever I have to work on a project, if I were to lead a team, then I've seen that the team dynamics is very good. I can like make a very friendly ambience, and then that helps a lot in terms of achieving goal, and in terms of achieving goal in a timely fashion. So I found myself enjoy the experience. So I think I'm a team player. So that's, you don't have to like spell it out to them. You know what I mean? Like if you can make bullet points out of like these things, these experiences you have had, then it would sound very authentic, and you'd sound very comfortable talking about it, and that matters a lot. Like you sounding very comfortable and very settled when you talk about yourself makes a lot of difference. Same goes for talking about your weaknesses. And that when you talk about your weaknesses, like the fact that you can talk about your weaknesses very easily, no matter what those weaknesses are, very honestly, actually tells everyone that you are someone who is very content with who you are. It tells everyone that you are very observant about your weaknesses, and if you tell them that you are already working on improving yourself, then the whole story tells the interviewer that you are very proactive, in that you recognize your weaknesses and you've already started working on it. And it really does not matter what your weaknesses are. Very popular ones are like procrastination. You can say I've struggled with procrastination a lot, but then I've noticed that if I give myself a deadline, which is not exactly the deadline, but then a few days before it, then I tend to work faster and then get things done faster. I use techniques like Pomodoro technique, or if I like make a social announcement with my friends or family that I'm going to work on this, then that actually motivates me in working towards my goal. So those things can be used in terms of like talking about your weaknesses. But then the tone of voice you use and the body language you use while talking about your weaknesses is also important, in that it conveys how grounded a person you are. So that might be important. Element of a little lightheartedness can be important also. And yesterday, one of my seniors actually gave me a very nice example. She said, when I asked her what made you choose internal medicine, she said, well, a very beautiful answer, but then somewhere in it, she said, well, I did not have the surgical hands. And then, I mean, if you do that with a tone that sounds very serious and very judgmental, then that might be a very bad thing to say. You are criticizing, like you're basically saying, I could not be a surgeon, that's why I wanted to be an internal medicine doctor and internist. But then the way she said it sounded very lighthearted and very fun. So it's what I'm trying to get at is it's really about how you speak and how you portray yourself rather than just what you speak, if that makes sense. And there are many other questions that we can talk about, I guess, in future videos. But then I just wanted to um, get out there and then talk about like these general questions. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want to uh, you guys want me to do a full mock interview, or just answer random interview questions, or like how do you want me to go about it, if you want me to go about it at all. So that'll be it for today. See you in the next one. Take care.